Sean Coyne in The Story Grid has a list of 12 content genres. John Truby in Genres has a list of 14, which raises questions for me. Who is right? Because I like structure and logic, I want to see and believe there has to be an underlying logic. And that's how this new category of external dynamics was created, the community story dynamics. I'm Jule Kucera, creator and founder of StoryJoules, and this particular way of looking at the dynamics of story. I help writers craft powerful stories. Last week, we looked at the external story dynamics and the pressure they put on our beloved avatars. This week, we're looking at what I call community story dynamics. The question they answer is, what if the protagonist or avatar is experiencing external pressure because they are a member of a particular community? In this video, you'll see 4 community story dynamics of well-known stories. Maybe you've got a community dynamic in your work in progress. The community dynamics, as well as the other story dynamics, are all described in the Story Dynamics Quick Guide, which you can download in the link below. What do story dynamics do for us? They determine how the avatar is pressured externally and how they are demanded to change internally. To talk about community story dynamics, I want to talk about how they came to be. 3 years ago, I was leading a program called Memoir Mastery, and for 2 participants, when we identified the story dynamics at work in their story, something was missing. And let's talk about one of them. This is Memoir Mastery, so they're writing memoir. Her life was shaped by something that happened when I think she was 9 or 10. She was living in Cuba with her family, and she was rounded up with other kids her age and put on an airplane to travel to the United States. The airplane was full of kids her age, and it wasn't the only airplane. There were several of them. These children were called the Peter Pan kids. Her life was under threat, and so was everyone else's in her community. And that's how the community story dynamic was born. Just like every other story dynamics are determined by the values at stake. They also have the standard scale of positive to negative with gradations between, and the double negative, the negation of the negation. But when it comes to how that external pressure of chaos is applied, there's an added level of complexity. And here's the question to decide if community dynamics are at play in your story. Does my avatar feel this pressure because they are a member of a community? It's not a random collection of people, it's an identifiable group that has something in common, a country, a belief, a circumstance. Next, we'll take each of the 4 external story dynamics that we looked at last time and apply it to a community. The question is, where does the community feel the pressure? Is it their experience of physical threat? If so, action applied to a community is war. It has the same scale as the action external story dynamic, but this time that scale is applied to an entire community. When the action is applied to an entire community, then we have the war community dynamic, as in All Quiet on the Western Front. It's the same community dynamic in The Sympathizer by Viet Thanh Nguyen, who is not just a brilliant writer, but also a brilliant speaker. It's also the story dynamic for the nonfiction book When I Turned 19 about the Vietnam War. If you have an avatar that is experiencing injustice to the degree that it will demand change, and they are not alone, their entire community is experiencing this, then we have the war story dynamic. Crime applied to a community is the society external story dynamic. Again, the same scale, but this time applied to a community, as in The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, or The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, or nonfiction, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. This was the missing story dynamic for that memoirist in my program, that little girl on the airplane. She, along with all those other children, were experiencing injustice applied to a community. In her case, children of parents who were in the wrong political party. Where does the community feel the pressure? If it's their experience of evil, whether that's evil is supernatural or an unhinged human, then we have horror. Horror applied to community is what I'm calling the religion story dynamic, and I wish I could think of a better name, but I can't. I'm not talking about religion in terms of a personal belief system. I'm talking about religion used as a means, an organized means to control a population. An example is the Da Vinci Code. Another example is Stephen King's Carrie. Another example is The Road to Jonestown, nonfiction about Jim Jones. And if you're not familiar with Jim Jones, it's where the expression drank the Kool-Aid comes from. Where does the community feel the pressure? If it's their experience of relationships, love applied to a community gets us the community love. This is the other genre that caused me to come up with this, that the memoir mastery person had. She was writing a story about the nonviolent movement in Colombia. And again, it was missing, but as soon as she had this external genre, her story fell into place for her. The community doesn't have to be the whole world or a whole country. It can be a neighborhood. It can be something much smaller. So whether we're talking the life of Mahatma Gandhi or Deacon King Kong, which I think does have the community love genre, it's about universal love within that community. It's also true for nonfiction. Strength to Love by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I want to read what Coretta Scott King said about this book because it applies to this community genre. She said in the preface, "If there is one book Martin Luther King Jr. has written that people consistently tell me has changed their lives, it's Strength to Love. I believe it is because this book best explains the central element of Martin Luther King Jr.'s philosophy of nonviolence, his belief in a divine, loving presence that binds all life." Where does the community feel the pressure? Is it physical threat? Is it injustice? Is it evil? Is it relationships? That tells you whether you have a war, society, religion, or universal love or community love dynamic. What matters is not how I categorize the story dynamics. What matters is how you use them in your writing and how you trace the dynamics at play all the way through your story from beginning to end. To help you do that, download the Story Dynamics Quick Guide. It includes more examples and my favorite, the Story Dynamics Diagnostic. It's a chart that helps you figure out what are the story dynamics at play in your work in progress. It's nice to have it at your fingertips. As always, if you have questions, thoughts, comments, please use the comment section so I can respond. Whether story nerd or novice, I'd love to hear what's on your mind. Thank you for being here. See you next time for Story Dynamics Pro Tips. We'll compare two popular genre lists, the Coin and the Truby lists, with story dynamics so that you can see how they align and don't align, and we'll talk about mashups. Tally ho!